I'm Anna Ruddick and I'm a community theologian. I work for a variety of organisations and support churches, Christian groups and local organisations to reflect on their mission and their role in their communities. I think I see hope in society where there's a greater awareness of the ways in which we can alienate and other one another. I think in the churches, the communities that I talk to, people are increasingly asking questions about the power that they see at work in their communities, the power that they have as churches, or their feelings of lack of power, their desire to come alongside people in their communities and reflect carefully on how they do that and what they're seeking to achieve in that. And for me, that very sign of reflection and asking those questions is a sign of hope. Yeah, so I guess where I see fear is in that anxiety about relinquishing power often, anxiety about our position in relation to others in communities, the position of the church, or particularly I suppose in relation to the charity sector and the church's role as a helper. We really like our role as a helper, where it makes us feel useful and valuable, and the thought that maybe just being a helper to our communities isn't the primary way that we might come alongside them can be a real challenge to people. It can instigate quite a lot of anxiety and insecurity and takes people right back to asking deep theological questions about what salvation is and how they are called to be church in the world. So for me that conversation is great, but where there is anxiety and fear, that conversation can be shut down. So for me, the role of religion in public life is, well, it's just there, isn't it? There is religion in public life. The question is to what degree it's acknowledged and how it's handled for every human being. And the questions of faith, spirituality, religion are about those things that matter most to us and about the ways in which we understand what a good life is, both for ourselves as individuals and for our world. Those questions are of vital importance within public life, and where we can't acknowledge that they come from our faith perspectives, where we struggle to find ways to talk well together about the challenges and the differences in our worldviews, that's where I think you find problems and can create fracture and dissonance in communities. So I guess fundamentally we just need to find ways to have conversations about the things that matter most to us, and we need to find places where we can have common ground as well as acknowledging our differences. And I'm not sure you can find common ground until you're able to talk openly about your differences as well. What I really find useful about Temple's work is the fact that he owned the fact that theology is a foundation for his life and work in the world. He admitted it. He was open about the fact that a theological vision drove his desire to see the world shaped in a particular way. I think that's incredibly helpful. I guess he's often described as a pragmatist, but I really love the fact that he looked at reality. He took account of what was really there in front of him in the society in which he lived, and actually worked with that. So in one sense, I mean, my field is practical theology, and I see William Temple as a practical theologian in the sense that he did take account of what was really there in front of him and then worked with that in order to bring about what he conceived of as a vision of a good future. I'd really like to see the William Temple Foundation continue to bridge a really interesting space between theology and religious studies. I think that's one thing that we do really well in terms of providing different lenses onto faith in public life, both as insiders but also sometimes as outsiders, and speaking into both spheres I think is really interesting. The other avenue that I think it's really important for us to pursue is that engagement at the grassroots, so that we are facilitating conversation amongst grassroots practitioners in communities, normal people of faith and non-faith, who are wanting to grapple with how to build a better society, and that we then feed that learning as we learn from that grassroots, that we feed that learning into our academic work, which then becomes a resource again for the grassroots. So that kind of circular pattern of grassroots and research and learning is really important to me.